now I want to head right into the heart of the broadcast with no other than Kim Kardashian's pro-ICE protests. Pro-ICE protests. Kim Kardashian. And then at the end of this broadcast, or near the end rather, you guys really need to stay tuned because I'm going to give a very concise, comprehensive breakdown of the relationships between Hispanics / Latinos and Black Americans. The reason why this is significant because the race component, even though we wanted to disappear, even though we want to avoid the conversation, even though if you keep bringing up race, then race will already exist. No, it's going to exist regardless because it lives in people's subconscious. It's actually just embedded in America because Black Americans are always fighting for people to understand the contributions we made to this country in our very tragic past. Oh, yeah, that happened such a long time ago. What about now? Well, those sentiments, those emotions, those feelings, that energy, it still exists. Because if it didn't, why do we still have racism in America? While people are trying to tell us that there's no racism in America. I digress. Kim Kardashian stated, when we told the ICE that the ICE exists to keep our country safe and remove violent criminals, great. But when we witness innocent, hardworking people being ripped from their families in inhumane ways, we have to speak up. We have to do what's right. Let me tell you what's 1000% wrong with Kim Kardashian's message. She stated again, when we were told that ICE exists to keep our country safe and remove violent criminals, that's not why ICE exists. That's not why ICE exists. Why do everybody believe that we only have to go after the violent criminals? What does that indicate? What does that indicate? That means that they have to commit a crime. That means some innocent American, some innocent person may be harmed or killed or stolen from or whatever, but they have to commit a crime for us then now to deport them, even though they were illegally in the country. Wow. So that means when all these illegal people come inside the country, again, they come from all the countries around the world. I'm not focusing on Central America, but that's where the mass concentration of them come from. Okay. That's just the reality of things. Okay. I'm speaking very non-biasly on Black logic. I'll let you know when I inject my conjecture and when I allude to certain things, I always make you guys aware because I don't want you to get my ideology of the way I look at this, but there is a spin. Growing up in LA, I've seen how deeply immigrants are. They are our neighbors, friends, classmates, co-workers, and family. No matter where you fall politically, it's clear that our communities thrive because of the contribution of immigration. We can't turn a blind eye when fear and injustice keep people from living their lives freely and safely. Again, there's so many issues with this because she's avoiding the obvious. She stated, growing up in LA, I've seen how deeply immigrants are woven into the fabric of this city. That's true. They are our neighbors, friends, classmates, co-workers, and family. No matter where you fall politically, it's clear that our communities thrive because of contributions of immigrants. That's true. But the thing that she has avoided to state, you're not saying legal immigrants or illegal immigrants. So again, that's very subjective. And I think it's very, I think she did it purposely. Because basically what she's saying, in my opinion, and this is what I believe, she's trying to support illegal immigration. Well, she didn't say that, and that's why I say this is my opinion. Because again, why are you saying what you're saying? Because here's the thing: there's a lot of immigrants in America who are citizens. Oh, I'm a first generation American. I'm an immigrant. My parents were immigrants. Something of that nature. But again, that means that she's referring to people who are not in a legal status. They don't have, a visa. They're not here on student visa, work visa. They don't have a legal residency, and they haven't become a citizen. That's what she's talking about. Now, and again, when it comes to the legal resident and the visas, yeah, they have to be expired for them to become now illegal if they didn't get renewed in time. So again, I think what Kim Kardashian is saying, she don't have enough people, or we will not have enough people for her to be serviced. Because again, a lot of the immigrants that come to America, illegal or legal, they're mostly in service and construction jobs. So being in LA, she would need all this cheap service because it'd be really expensive if Americans was doing it. I digress. This is what President Trump is doing. President Trump issued a proclamation restricting the entry of foreign nationals to protect the United States from foreign terrorists. Reimposing travel restrictions on nationals from 12 countries: Afghanistan, Iran, Libya, Haiti, Somalia, etc. Because with partial restriction on others, critics argue that the move lacks clear evidence tying immigration to terrorism threats. And this policy took place on January 9th, by the way. Now we're putting things into motion. And a lot of people are not going to like this. People who part of the Humane Society and those people who are very emotional about these anti-ICE protests that have been popping up all around the country. And I'm going to show you guys a map of all these anti-ICE protests. And it's like, I wonder if other Western countries are having these issues where you have millions of people in your country illegally. As this broadcast mature, I'm building up something for you guys, and I hope you guys can truly decipher the underlying factor that I'm trying to make here. But I won't tally on some of these stories too long, but I'm building, and I think it's very, very imperative. Major General Scott Sherman confirmed that the National Guard and Marine units deployed in LA can temporarily, this is the escalation I was talking about yesterday. This is the escalation. They can temporarily detain individuals if necessary without making formal arrests. Around 500 troops are active, primarily safeguarding ICE operations amid rising protest activity. And people have come out, they're talking about that this authority could blur military-civilian role boundaries. This is what I was referring to yesterday of getting closer to inciting the Insurrection Act. That's basically going to police-rise military personnel. Now, I want you guys to hear this very, very quickly.
Defense has mobilized. Right now, it's 4,700 personnel, so 4,000 from the California National Guard, 700 Marines. And our mission is to protect federal agencies, our federal partners, their personnel as they conduct their federal mission, and even more in particular as they do the enforcement of federal law, and then also to protect all federal assets and federal facilities that are located.
So what he's saying is that President Trump has made 4,700 military personnel, 4,000 soldiers, 700 hardcore Marines to be bodyguards of ICE agents. That's what I heard. He said to protect ICE agents so they can go out and do their duties. ICE agents now have the world's most fearless fighting force, the Marines, to protect them. And they say they're not necessarily going to arrest them, but they can put hands on them. This is getting bad. I don't want this at all, because I can see gangs in that area from LA when things start to get really physical, start to shoot at military personnel, then automatically what President Trump has already done is stating that these people are terrorists. What do you believe is going to happen? He's then going to act out on domestic land, because these guys that may come and start to raise the lethal amount, meaning that they're going to go from, sticks and throwing bottles and this, that, and the other and start shooting, he can easily label them as terrorists. So we're going to have military troops doing all sorts of raids and investigation seeking to unalive a lot of people. If you guys don't believe it can get that bad, believe me, it can get that bad. And hopefully we're not heading for that. I don't want any of that. But I just want to give you guys the truth. This can get really bad very quickly. And I think in these illegal protests, and the reason why people are saying they're illegal is because they're supporting illegality, meaning that you're supporting people who are illegally in the country. So essentially, these are not peaceful protests, and I'm going to prove that later. Everything that I'm saying, I'm going to prove here. What to know about these No King protests against Trump's policies on Saturday? Well, I want to make you guys very aware of the No Kings. Here we go. This is very important for you guys to know about groups like this. It says, why is it called No Kings? The No Kings thing was orchestrated by the 50-51 movement, and a national movement made up of everyday Americans who stand for democracy against what they call the authoritarian actions of the Trump administration. And that name simply means 50 states, 50 protests, one movement. Protests earlier this year have denounced Trump and billionaire advisor Elon Musk, the new form of the Trump efficiency. So this is old, but this is where this group has come from. Because these are the ones who've been holding a lot of these rallies and protests. Because nearly 2,000 No King rallies symbolically opposing aristocratic rule are expected across the U.S. on June 14th, this Saturday, coinciding with Trump's army parade and 79th birthday event sprawled from Connecticut to California, now with major turnouts in San Francisco, Chicago, Florida, and Houston. Protests aim to highlight concerns over this so-called radical judicial integrity and immigration enforcement. This is going to get bad very quickly. Unfortunately, I don't believe we're at the end of a lot of these anti-ICE protests, and this is going to get bad, or worse rather, before it gets good. Let me show you guys this map of protests have already been occurring. Protests reported since June 6th. We've had protests all around America. Now, it's probably a good time to live in South Dakota, North Dakota, Utah. But nonetheless, they've been having all these anti-ICE protests around the country. I wonder why. This is everybody who's opposing immigration law in America. So we only want to choose the laws that are good for us. That's the only laws we want to choose. Okay. All right. So I want to know who's rioting downtown. It states here, many across Southern California, the nations are asking who's inciting the violence, committing the vandalism, and doing the looting. Is it demonstrators or habitual agitators? And if you just look at some of the pictures here, some of the graphics here, you can look at tattoos identifying marks. I wonder who these people are. Because these debates swirls around whether violence stems from genuine protesters or outside agitators, a claim trending after earlier events like January 6th. So I look at some of his tattoos, and you guys can zoom in as well. And you may be familiar with certain tattoos, certain affiliations, certain backgrounds, but this seems to be like an Hispanic man. And again, agitators can be paid off. They don't really care about the protests. Maybe they're legally in the country. That's why he's covering his face. So this is some of the things that are going on in LA. We can speculate to the death, and we can be very subjective about it as well. But there's one thing that I'm not going to be subjective to. There's a couple of things I want to show you guys. But first, in good nature, I want to start this segment of the broadcast off wonderfully.
I will go for Donald Trump.
right, I had to put us in the spirit of this next segment of the broadcast. I just think it's very important that we understand this. So first and foremost, I played that song for you guys to understand there have been a very large percent of the Latin Hispanic community that voted for Donald Trump. And I'm not going to speak into conjecture. I'm just going to give you the numbers very unbiasedly, and I'm going to give you accounts. So we saw a whole band, and granted, the song was actually catchy, really good beat. It was either salsa or merengue. I'm not too familiar, but nonetheless, there was a large gathering. Okay, so again, let me set the premise of this next segment.
Ben. Jeremiah Arando, Fresno, posted this video on TikTok capturing the moments as he made his way from a nearby parking lot to the anti-ICE rally in downtown Fresno Monday.
You gotta always go what you believe in, man. Follow your beliefs.
He has a sign up. Hopefully you guys can see it. I know it's pretty small over here, but he has a sign.
All a pro-Trump Hispanic.
Give me 1 second. I guess I can't increase the size, but he's holding up a sign that states Latinos for Trump. We voted for this. And he's a Latino, man. Let me show you him again.
Yesterday, as soon as he showed up at the anti-ICE rally that was held in downtown Fresno.
Fox 26 News reporter Myra Franco shares why he says he felt the need to attend. He recorded the entire incident, right, Myra?
He ended up leaving with bruises. All of that was caught on camera, so let's take a look at what happened.
Jeremiah Arando, Fresno, posted this video on TikTok capturing the moments as he made his way from a nearby parking lot to the anti-ICE rally in downtown Fresno Monday.
You gotta always go what you believe in, man. Follow your beliefs. Been running to this whole crowd. I didn't see not one of them with me. You know, I'm suited and booted. Ready for action, ready for war.
Line into the air. Then this happens.
What you want to do? What you want to do? What's up? What you want to do? What you want to do? What's up? What you want to do? Get the f out of here. I got it on me. I got it on me. Y'all better back the up. Exactly.
Aranda sat down to talk with us about what motivated him to attend the rally.
My main intent, honestly, was to be a voice for my side. Honestly, I went into it thinking that there were going to be at least a few of people on my side that I could band together. I honestly, genuinely thought that. And I mean, shortly found out real early in the video that I was the only one in the city, probably, that supported Trump that was actually there.
He says even though he was a...
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm pretty sure he's speaking for a percentage of his community. But basically, we said that there's a lot of Latinos and Hispanic that voted for President Trump. I really thought there would be other people there. Now, he could have just been trolling or being an agitator, so to speak. But those people attacked him. And again, that's only representing a very small percentage. I get it. But again, the more evidence, information we get, we're starting to understand that there's part of the Latin Hispanic community that is against illegal immigration. Then there is another side of that community that is for illegal immigration because maybe they have a family member, friend, loved one, or even themselves may be illegal. So I think it's time to go there. It's time to go there. When we speak about anti-Black and colorism in Hispanic Latino communities, a lot of people highlight that anti-Black racism is systematic within Hispanic communities, not merely individual bias, not merely individual bias. Now, Tanya K. Hernandez writes, it's a systematic problem within Hispanic communities rooted in colonialism, contradicting the myth of multicultural harmony. Now, Pew Research found that 32 to 40% of dark-skinned Hispanics report discrimination from other Hispanics or for being perceived as not smart, facing stops by police or being told to go back to your country. Hispanics being discriminatory against themselves. It states here that a Pew Research study published in November of 21 found that 41% of Hispanics with darker skin report experiencing discrimination by someone else who is also Hispanic. In comparison to 25% of Hispanics with lighter skin report experiencing the same. Experience of discrimination include being treated as if they were not smart, being told to go back to their country, or facing unfair police stops. So it's happening to the Black Hispanics as well. So this is not a cultural thing. This is a race thing. And so when foundational Black Americans state that we're not going to get off our square to support a group that have not supported us in the same large numbers that we have in the past to pass a lot of these immigration laws, a lot of these social rights, a lot of these civil rights, that we're not going to know, that we're going to sit this one out. Absolutely. This has nothing to do about us trying to be prejudiced or racist towards Hispanics or any other group. This is about Black Americans focusing on themselves, empowering themselves, trying to do better for ourselves, and try to get some legislation for ourselves to pass, because we understand when we helped out other people, when we assisted other groups, when we protested for other causes, it has never been beneficial for us. It has never been beneficial for us. Absolutely not. In 2022, you guys recall that incident when the LA City Council President, Nuri Martinez, was referring to a Black child, I showed that yesterday, as a monkey and hurling slurs at indigenous people. And this triggered her resignation. Go look it up. Nuri Martinez, LA City Council. She resigned after that. And it highlighted how anti-Black and anti-indigenous attitudes are embedded within Latino communities. Well, I guess if we go back to 1937, it states here that Leon, it says the political party founded in 1937 in Leon, Squanacrism, that is in opposition to policy established after the Revolution of 1911, especially in opposition to the anti-clerical laws. It goes on to state that it originated at the instigation of a German professor of languages, Enguajardo. It says, it goes on, who was a member of the Nazi Party, and a German intelligence agency during World War I. The movement opposed communism, liberalism in the United States, and supported the fascist dictators, Mussolini and Adolf Hitler. Can we talk about it? Colonial legacy. Because the enduring idea of racial mixing, often masking color hierarchies, means lighter skin is preferred and darker skin is devalued, which has always been. And this hierarchy remains persuasive throughout Latin America because they have Afro-Latino invisibility. They don't want these people to be seen because Afro-Latinos face compounded erasure both from broader society and within Latino communities and their identity. But it goes deeper than that. When you have even brown skinned Latinos, they have been very prejudiced and racist towards Black people as well, especially Black Americans. So it's almost like all this colorism throughout Latin America, as well as in India, as well as Nigeria and Jamaica. The lighter you are, the smarter you are, the better looking you are, versus the darker you are, the dumber you are, and the uglier you are. But I'm building while you don't see them supporting us. And now that the veil is from our eyes, now that we are no longer blinded, we're not supporting them. And this is not hatred. This is not dislike or discontent, but we understand you have a racial bias towards us. And then secondly, you never showed us that you're going to support us. But where did it start? That's where I'm at. This is how ideology starts. It starts from a very long time ago, and it starts to build, and people start to believe it instead of just the truth. People hate the truth because it makes your brain go haywire. How did it start? The rise of white nationalists, Hispanics, because Nick Fuentes, he identified himself as a white supremacist. And we're going to give you some evidence because there are Mexican neo-Nazi groups that have existed since the 1930s. Again, Mexican neo-Nazi groups have existed since the 1930s. We're talking about gold shirts with a modern resurgence. They have a very modern resurgence online. Over 28 neo-Nazi black metal bands operate clandestinely. They are separated throughout the U.S. and Mexico. Again, 28 neo-Nazi black metal bands operate this way, with concerts openly displaying swastikas, the Heil Hitler signs, and this far-right nationalist front of Mexico, also known as FNM, is neo-fascist with neo-Nazi factions. So here's a brown Latino. You can tell that he's not a white man. If anything, he looked like he has some sort of African ancestry. But because what his ideology is and what he identifies as, you have white supremacist groups or people who deem these groups to be white supremacists to start recruiting and accepting Latinos. I'd rather give you proof than conjecture. Because they have all sorts of terms like Nazi that reveals that even some Mezzo proudly embrace white supremacist ideology. He's probably a Mezzo. You also have the Social Patriot Movement out of Chile, a neo-Nazi group with more than 500 members and has committed attacks on migrants and minority. Also in Costa Rica, you have instances that included neo-Nazi police officers, Nazi paraphernalia shops, and xenophobic attacks on Nicaraguans because they have darker skin. I'm building. This is the Violent Extremist Threat Monitor. This account review of Mexican neo-Nazi organization use of social media to spread ideology. And of course, you guys, the reason why I'm giving you these sources because I don't want you to take my word for it. You can do the research for yourself. So again, that's why I'm putting on a large screen here on a Jumbotron. That way you guys can research. That way you know I'm not speaking into conjecture or bias. I'm providing proof and evidence to support my claim. The Empire Strikes Back inside a clandestine neo-Nazi concert in Mexico City. And people will say, oh, no, this can't be true. Because it's true. And I've shown this, I think about a year or two ago, but I want you guys to see, this is in Mexico. This is
A
in the Mexico.
300 personas en pleno 2022 gritando al unísono Sieg Heil, Sieg Heil. Súmale que esas personas se encontraban en la Ciudad de México, pues todo esto sucedió. El pasado.
All right. Of course, you can reference this video to watch it for yourself and try to translate into English if you don't speak Spanish. But nonetheless, they're showing all through Latin America, especially in Mexico, that they had these neo-Nazi groups. So again, first we had someone to come up with a term, then start to create ideology based off communism, and then groups start to form, or they start to learn from white supremacist groups in America, maybe in the Western Hemisphere, and start to build their own neo-Nazi groups. But they had them since the 1930s. They've had them since the 1930s. And I want to be very crystal clear here. This is not universal among all Hispanics or Latinos. but the evidence is undeniable. What I'm stating is there is a culture, because when you have groups of people with the same ideology, you start to build a culture. So there is a culture of white supremacist, neo-Nazi, anti-black rhetoric, groups, actions, and incidents within Latin America. And it seems to be based on research and evidence, very little that is. I only went through it for 2 days, 16 hours. That majority of this resides in Mexico. So again, this is not universal among all Hispanics or Latinos. But demonstrate discrimination, both overt and structural, persists towards darker skin and even Afro-descended Latinos in their own countries. Because again, high-profile incidents like the Nuri Martinez incident reveal how even Latino political leaders internalize and express anti-black sentiments. And then you also have organized extremist groups in Hispanic majority countries show that white supremacist ideology is alive and sometimes homegrown. Anti-black sentiments and white supremacist ideology exist within segments of the Hispanic Latino communities. And these attitudes are rooted in colonial legacies of colorism and are both systematic and expressed in discrete incidents. Latin American neo-Nazi groups through minorities have a real presence and impact. Now, that said, Hispanic identities are very diverse, many actively resisting racism and fight for some of their brethren Afro-Latino inclusion, but also ignoring or denying the history only perpetuates it. When did this start? I built there, I got there. Now, some people will blame the Spanish because, again, they colonized that region that we now know as Mexico. You have a lot of mixture of Native American tribes mixed in with the Spaniards. You have the Aztecians, the Mayans. You also as well has the Tainos. All these different Native American groups were raped, again, by the Spanish from Spain. They colonized them. So now you have the verge of Hispanics and all these Hispanic communities. And granted, some of these indigenous people, a lot of these Native Americans were actually black as well. Not all of them. Some of them were black as well. So that's why you had this wide range, even Tainos, a lot of them look black. So you have this very wide range of different colors within these Native American tribes that the Spanish raped and colonized. And then you have the upspringing of all of these Hispanic communities. And with the ideology of the Europeans at the time, they infested the Hispanic community with that ideology of being a supreme being because of your skin being lighter, being closer to God, because everybody looks at God as being up and God being bright light. See how that works? So when we think about these things, they're still operating off of the colonialism that occurred in their own countries and not rejecting that ideology because of where they come from. But again, when you look at most Hispanic countries, Latin America, none of them are pure anything. Okay, I'm not trying to be derogatory or deflammatory. I'm not. I'm just giving you the truth. Mexicans are mixed up of different Native American tribes and Spaniards. Just as Ecuador, El Salvadoran, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all through Latin America, they're mixed with something. And what I mean by mixed now, a lot of Black Americans are mixed as well. But because of African ancestry and the genes being so strong, we're easily recognizable. That's why in the Hispanic community, you have some people who can even consider themselves white, but they know they're Hispanic because maybe someone in their bloodline is either dark brown, medium brown, or even black. But they have this whole culture of trying to lighten their race. They even have a term for it. But there was a time, especially in Mexico, where they tried to eradicate racism. And they did that by the first Black president in North America, Mexico had at least one president with documented African heritage, Vincent Guerrero. He served as the second president of Mexico in 1829. He played a significant role in Mexico's independence and often referred to as Mexico's greatest man of color. His background, he was of mixed indigenous and African ancestry. His father was African Mexican and his mother was Native Mexican. He was a leader in the Mexican War of Independence. He became president in 1829. During his short time in office, he abolished slavery in Mexico. So a black man, he wasn't the first president of Mexico, but he was the second. And a black man had to abolish the enslavement of his own people because the previous president could not. Guerrero is recognized for his commitment to equal rights for all citizens, regardless of their racial background. He championed policies like taxing the wealthy and protecting small businesses. Sound like he was an independent almost. His presidency was brief and he was overthrown and executed in 1831. 29 to 31, 2 years in office. He was overthrown and executed. Why is that? Some historians suggest that his execution was potentially linked to a racial prejudice, aiming to discourage individuals of mixed heritage from aspiring to higher office. So they killed him because he was a black man. Last but not least. Now, it states here, and I don't know how to pronounce this one name here in Spanish, but it says, and I'm just going to call it the state of Guerrero. Of course, this was named after the president, the second president of Mexico, Vincent Guerrero. It says that it is known for having the highest concentration of Afro-Mexicans, meaning the highest percent of its population identify as Afro-Mexican. 75% of the town's approximately 27,000 residents identify as Afro-Mexican. So you know what they did, in my opinion? They played a sick joke on the Afro-Mexicans. This is my opinion. Oh no, put all those black Africans or those black Afro-Mexicans in the president's town, the second president where he was black, Vincent Guerrero. So it stay here in the state of Guerrero is known for having the highest concentration of Afro-Mexican. There's a connection there. And then the next state, which we most know, I say this all the time, is Veracruz. They have concentrated areas where they have a lot of the Afro-Mexicans. So they segregated them, in my opinion. Because a lot of people don't even know there's Afro-Mexicans. When you look up Afro-Mexican just for a picture, you're like, what? These are Mexican? Veracruz, all over the screen. The black people of Younger Mexico. These are black Mexicans. These are Afro-Mexicans. These are the ones that they don't want you to see. These are the ones that exist. And again, I'm not here to clown the Hispanic community. I just want to give you guys a very concise, comprehensive, informational breakdown on the relationship between the Hispanic community and the Black American community. Because the Black American community, for some reason, everybody goes against us. I have no idea why. We only try to help other people, and now that hasn't worked, we started to help ourselves. And now that we're public and social about it, people feel as though we're being prejudiced, or they start to call us very, racial, incendiary threats and tropes. I don't understand why. I have no idea why, but I do know why this.
Everybody, let's sing this song, everybody, together, okay? I need you loud, because I want to Trump hear that song, okay? Again. Yo quiero que todo el mundo lo cante fuerte. I will vote. Everybody. I will vote. Come on. Repeat. Oh my God. I will vote. Come on. I will vote. Hey. For Donald. Oh my God. I will vote. Let's do it. I will vote. Repeat for the